Happy Saturday, and I hope everyone's having a great weekend. This is Valgrim, and welcome to my fifth weekly recap. I had a pretty good week this week, up $73.13, as you can see on my trader view here. Same old story. Missed a few opportunities, had a couple of tech issues on Monday and Tuesday, fixed it for the rest of the week. Could have been an even better week, and on the 10th and the 12th, we did have a couple of red days. So we're going to get into that. But first, I want to thank everyone because we are at 520 subscribers right now. And today I was actually able to apply for my YouTube partnership just to allow super chats and stuff. I believe the next milestone is 1,000 subscribers. But the channel has been growing really quickly over the past month. It's been just over 30 days or so. Since I only had 18 subscribers and we're already up to 526, I believe, when I looked at it today, which is a lot faster than I had ever imagined I would be growing. So I want to thank everyone who's stopping into the live stream and checking in on these videos. And yeah, that's been great. But without further ado, let's get into the recap here. Let me open up my VOD from Monday. So the first thing that I was watching when I sat down on the morning of Monday, August 10th was JWEL, being our top leading gainer with a 1 million share float. It was a Chinese stock with no news, I believe. For some reason, my ticker is on STKH right here, but yeah, there we go. Chinese stock up 156%, being our top leading gainer. And I was watching for the break of this pivot on the 5-minute at 438. But unfortunately on this trade, it goes very quickly through that pivot level without me, and I don't get my order filled. But that would have been a nice trade if I could maybe anticipate the break that level rather than reacting to it, and then it ended up going without me. Probably could have bought as it popped up to 450 and then pulled back here to 420. Ends up being a strong break and going all the way up to 6. I do take a trade on this pullback. Buying for the bull flag pattern as it's pulling back here. Higher volume buying, lighter volume selling. Target would be a retest of the high of day. Stop would be around 425, just below the lows of support. But I don't like the price action. It pops up through that 550 level, that level of psychological resistance, and gets slammed back down. And it does that over and over again. And I typically don't like the price action when it does that. Right there, I notice it moves all the way to 570 and kind of does a false breakout. So I just get out on the ask for basically a break-even trade after commissions. I don't take any more trades in this area. It pulls back. MACD goes negative. AUUD pops up. US tech company. And right up here, it forms a big shooting star candle in the 1 minute. So although it does curl back up, I don't take a trade on it. I just leave it alone. It also does another pop off of VWAP here. One thing to note is that this is a cheaper stock, so I typically don't like trading stocks under $2. And that was a bit of a theme this week. Penny stocks were in focus, which is kind of unfortunate for me because I don't like trading them. And I later in the week, you'll see me eventually I capitulate. I'm like, well, maybe I should give these penny stocks a try. And I lost a couple of times on them, trading the backside of the moves after getting a little bit of FOMO. But right here, it's still early on in the week, and we don't take any trades on these penny stocks, so we're not particularly interested. Although I did note that there were a couple of spots where I would have been a buyer if I were to trade them, like on this this bounce off of VWAP back here, this sub VWAP trap, the second time it bounces there, and the retest of VWAP. They're all valid setups for sure. But I don't take any of them. I do take a trade on JWEL here and lose. I'm not entirely sure why I took a trade here. Let's watch the replay back. I suppose I'm thinking that we popped up to this 540 level, kind of have a flat top, and we rejected, and we're still coming back up anyways. So I think that I was thinking that if it breaks 540, 550, then we might see a squeeze back up to high of day. MACD is positive. But take a position there as it rejects and then squeezes back up, kind of a bullish engulfing candle in the 10-second chart. We have 17 seconds left on this 5-minute candle close. So I suppose I'm thinking that if this 5-minute candle closes as a hammer, a nice green candle, and it breaks 550, then it's might be a pretty good likelihood that we squeeze back up to high of day. Now, there was a big seller that popped up in the level 2. I was hoping that they would get out of the way if this 5-minute candle closes, or maybe get bought up if we have a big surge of volume. I'm just watching the level 2, seeing if we can bounce off of the 9 EMA and come back up. The candle on the 5-minute did close green, so I was pretty optimistic about this trade curling, but it ends up stopping me out as it breaks through 525, unfortunately. So that gives us a loss on Monday, 60.91. I don't think I take any more trades on this day. SCKT was the big mover that happened on Monday. Pretty incredible move. I swapped charts here. I wasn't watching it because it's another penny stock, and I don't normally pull up the charts for penny stocks. But I noticed it was moving very quickly, and as it broke through $1, it popped all the way up to 4, which is pretty insane, making a 400% move in an instant. Comes all the way back down, and I don't really know how to treat this chart at this point. Right, gigantic topping tail, high volume selling on the 10-second. And now that I kind of have a precedent for this type of move, since it happened twice this week, this one with SCKT and then another one which I'll be showing later, which popped all the way up to 18, they kind of both did the same thing. But they pop up, then we get a big short squeeze. You know, we get some short sellers that are probably getting margin called up here. And then as it's coming back down, it's holding the 9 EMA very well, like very tightly. And I think the reason for that is probably because short sellers are using the 9 EMA to cover their positions. So it ends up grinding back up. I don't take any trades on this because I don't know how to treat it because I haven't seen this price action before. But perhaps the right thing to do in the future for these type of stocks where they have a big short squeeze and it comes all the way back down is to see if it holds the 9 EMA, see if it holds up, and maybe buy one of these pullbacks here. So this did an ABCD on the 10-second. Maybe a buy for the hold of $2 would have been a good spot, or you know, down. Let's see if I can rewind enough to see where that was. Yeah, maybe around 160, 150 would have been a good spot as it's holding up. And it just continues grinding all the way up to 250. There's a couple of pullbacks, but I really don't know how to treat this chart. And someone asked me, like, how did I not make money on SCKT? And I said, well, if I don't know what it's doing, then I don't know what direction it's going. So how can I take a trade if I don't know what direction it's going? And that's kind of the way that I treat these type of stocks. It could make 1,000% move, but I don't really care if I can't find a safe entry on it. I don't have a right to trade it if I don't know what it's going to do. Because if I don't know what it's going to do, then I'm just gambling if I'm jumping in on it. But now that I have a precedent for these, I can try to treat them in the future a little bit differently, hopefully. I don't take any more trades for the day. I stick around at the open a little bit longer, but I don't like trading these stocks as they're halting around. I do miss a trade here in SDKH. It did a nice pullback to VWAP after it resumed from the halt with higher volume buying, lighter volume selling. Bounces twice off of VWAP. So I think that I circle it there, and I think that that was potentially a trade at the open that I could have taken. That was Monday. On Tuesday, our top leading gainer was WXM, and we had a couple of other stocks that we were watching throughout the day. AIHS popped up, and I did take a trade on this. It popped up and was moving very quickly. I saw the first high of day was around 312. And as it popped through high of day and did a pullback, I bought for the hold of $3. I saw that we had buyers step in as it neared 3. I took a position at 317 with a stop of 3. And I sold as it went up to 350. This did go all the way up to 4. I believe I could have done a little bit better of a job executing. You see I scale out a little bit early at 336. I think that was an emotional scale out. On this particular day, I wasn't feeling very like myself. I'm not sure why. I felt very jittery on this day. And it caused me to make some odd decisions that I wouldn't normally make. Like there was no reason for me to scale out there. I thought that, oh, well, maybe it was double topping. It pops up to 350, and then it kind of, I do notice that, there is a little bit of a burst of selling. Let's look back and see it's like popping up, and we still have a burst of selling as we're popping up here. But there wasn't really any exit indicator on it for me yet. The pullback wasn't completed. The second candle hadn't finished forming yet. So I think the right thing to do was just to hold for a little bit longer and then scale out as it pops up to 4. Take some profit as it goes up to 4. Would have been a much better trade. And now as we're having some sellers and we break down 350, I exit the rest. So I only get a small winner on this, $11 winner. Could have been, I missed out maybe on another 50 cents on my first scale out. So maybe $8. These these little decisions do add up. Even though it seems small for just a single trade, they do add up. So I got to make sure that I do better in going forward in the future. I also take another trade on it right here for this pullback. It bounces off that 340 level. And I'm watching it, and as it comes back up through 350, I take a position to anticipate the move higher. And it goes all the way up to 4. I scale it a little bit at 4, and then I scale out the rest as it drops. And it does a nasty false breakout rejection there. So I get a little bit more on the day, up $15. But at this point, I'm wondering, like, I kind of failed to scale it on the first one. Should I have taken more up at 4? Since it was a false breakout, or should I have let this keep running? And I'm not entirely sure the answer to that. But at least I did get a small winner on it. MACD crosses over. We don't take any more trades on that. FRTT was one of the missed opportunities on Tuesday. I think I should have taken a position on this pullback at 130. This one was moving very quickly. It goes from 130 all the way to 180. And then once again, I probably should have taken a position here. So what happened was We form a pivot at around 179 as it pulls back, and we continue holding the 9 EMA and VWAP. We do an ABCD pattern on the 10-second. So probably the break of this ABCD pattern, there's also a flat top there. You can see the topping tails on these candles. I think I should have bought either for the ABCD pattern, the break of the flat top, or the break of the pivot of 179. Any of those entries would have been fine. But I was so focused on this high volume selling candle back here that I thought that, we have a big topping tail. I don't particularly like it. But once again, I mentioned earlier that I probably should take stock of when you have rejections, but they continue holding, and you have price break through those rejections, that's when we have short sellers covering. So I think I should have taken this trade. It goes all the way up to 350 and it was a big move. Fortunately, I missed the whole thing. The move is done by the time it pulls back. No more trades on it. And then the last trade I had for the day was WXM. So WXM pulls back near this level of support at $11. I don't take the position because I'm wary of the history that the stock has already had of selling off and rejecting around this area. It pops up to 1173, which is high of day, and does a rejection. But right after this rejection, I end up taking a position as it pops back up through high of day. You see it rejects, and then right there it spikes, and I take a position. And the reason for this is because when we see this sort of price action where we reject off of a level, but buyers step in and they buy up the stock anyways, and it breaks through high of day, that's a sign that the stock is very bullish. So I take a position at 12, expecting this to move up to 13. And it does a big pop there. I take some off at 1350. And I wait to see if this is going to continue going parabolic, because that was a pretty big move, $1.50 a share after it squeezed through high of day. But I end up taking the rest off because it pulls back too far. It pulls back all the way to $12. So I take some profit up at 1350, only a third off, and it kind of forces me to stop out as it forms a big topping tail in the 1 minute, and I expect this to just reject all the way back down, which it does. So decent trade, but I think the theme this week has been a lot of false breakouts, which hasn't been great. And normally a trade like that would have netted me a lot more, but because of the false breakouts this week, I'm scaling some profits off, and then as it's coming back down, I have to stop out break even or stop out for a slight loss. And this has happened a couple of times this week where the wins could have been bigger if they had continued, but they just didn't end up continuing, which is unfortunate. So that was my last trade for the day. That false breakout was a sign for me that I just shouldn't touch anything else. I had no idea what WXM was going to do at the open. It was halting up, halting down. I'm good. I don't need that sort of stress in my life. So we leave it alone. Here's August 12th, which is Wednesday. Right here is OFAL, which was our leading gainer on the day, which I had pulled open. I make it a rule not to trade before 7 a.m. because I noticed that sometimes when I trade before 7 a.m., I don't give myself time to center, and I end up FOMOing into trades. We don't want that to happen. We want to trade with clarity. And the second reason why is because a lot of brokers don't allow trading before 7 a.m., so the volume is typically lighter. and some setups are a bit less likely to work. So there's a couple reasons why I don't trade before 7 a.m. But if it were past 7 a.m., this might have been an okay opportunity to get in for the break of 178. MACD is still negative, but it does a pullback here. MACD's about to cross over, and the pullback would have been all right. I mean, it is a cheaper stock, and this is the day where I realized that penny stocks were in focus and they were in play. So still prior to 7 a.m., I don't take any trades, and this ends up going from 178 all the way up to 260. So I'm like, well, I kind of missed it at this point, right? We're coming into 7 a.m., and I'm wondering if this is going to be a 7 a.m. pop for this bull flag pattern when it hits 7 a.m., or if it's going to be a 7 a.m. sell-off. I'm watching it. I have an order filled, but I hesitate on the entry, and I don't take the trade, which is a bit unfortunate that I didn't take this trade. I was thinking that maybe we were extended on the 5 minute since we had how many? We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green candles in a row, and this one was closing with a topping tail. But I underestimated the 7 a.m. pop, strength of the 7 a.m. pop, and it ends up rallying all the way up to around 270, I believe. Yeah. So we missed that trade. It's unfortunate. Ends up going sideways, but I think that we're too extended up here and MACD's negative. No more trades on that. RMCF is the next penny stock that was moving. And this one I severely underestimated. It pops through high of day. There were some entries back here that would have been okay. ABCD on the 1 minute. That's fine. It pops through high of day and I'm watching it, right? And I'm thinking that it's forming a 1 minute micro pullback here. And I say it on stream, like, this looks like a 1 minute micro pullback, but I'm deliberating whether to take an entry on it because it's, you look at the ticker, it's a Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, right? It's food confectioners industry. They make chocolate. And we're right underneath the 200 on the daily, which is at 172. It's a penny stock. It's only $1.30 a share. It's a 6 million share float, which is a little bit higher. It's not high, but it's a little bit higher than usual. I'm thinking, like, if I buy into this trade, how much is it really going to move up? You look at the level 2 and it's thickly traded. It's got 19 million shares of volume. Do I really break my rules to touch this? Like, it's technically not like a hard rule for me not to trade penny stocks, but I don't normally trade them. I'm thinking that this probably isn't worth it, but I really underestimated how much people are buying into penny stocks this particular week. And this stock, that 1 minute micro pullback was a great entry, and it ends up going all the way up to 150, 160. Does a second 1 minute micro pullback up here at 160, and then it rips all the way up to 240, which is like 100% move from the highs. So I missed that. I'm feeling a little bit like I missed out on it. I'm thinking, well, maybe I should consider these penny stocks, considering the big move on SCKT and this and on OFIL now. Like, I missed so many of them. So I start watching them for the curl. Right here, Rocky Mountain comes back up, and I'm thinking that there's a flat top around this level, 170 to 180. MACD is about to cross. I end up buying right around here. Yeah, I buy right there, thinking that this 1 minute candle is about to close green as we break that 180 level. I bought at 184 and then I immediately got stopped out. And the reason why I got stopped out is because uh, for penny stocks, I have to take bigger share size. And I set a 5 cent stop, usually an arbitrary stop for penny stocks. So I bought in and it immediately rejected off of 180, which wasn't good. And I get stopped out there. And it chops around and I don't take any more trades. I was looking at the same thing for OFAL. OFAL had a pivot around 220. And I was looking for the break of 220 for this trade here for it to come back up and retest high of day. But it did the same thing RMCF did, where it breaks that level and then rejects. And I get stopped out. So I'm feeling a little bit frustrated because I missed the front side move where the moves were cleanest on these penny stocks, and now I'm getting chopped out on the backside with 2 losing trades in a row, minus 32 bucks. And later in the day, I missed the most important move of all on OFAL as it squeezes here. And it finally does break a pivot level and it goes up. And this is why trade breaks of the pivot is because they have really high risk reward, even though they have a bit lower accuracy. When they typically squeeze really hard. One thing for me to keep in mind is whether or not the pivot level is really obvious to other traders, and if shorts are going to get squeezed out of the position. So on this second pattern here, we do now have an obvious pivot level where we have a move up and then short sellers shorted off of that level and it continued to hold and it came back up, kind of in a W pattern with MACD positive. So this short squeeze here was a lot more obvious than the one that I bought earlier, where it was still coming down off of the highs. So that is something to keep in mind for my curling patterns as well. I have to ask myself if the curling pattern is obvious enough to traders. It ends up breaking, so it breaks up there, tests that pivot level, pulls back, and it fails to go lower, has higher volume buying than selling. And so the point that it comes back up and breaks again is the time to buy, and it squeezes all the way up to 350. But we missed that trade. And at this point, I was a little bit frustrated, but I end up getting a trade right here, which was a winner that turned into a losing trade, unfortunately. I thought that it would have a chance to retest 350. We do an extended ABCD pattern where we test that level twice, form a doji and then a green candle, and I'm thinking right here that with the formation of this candle and 50 seconds left on that 5-minute candle, this could be a candle over candle for the retest of 350 on the 5-minute, or an ABCD pattern on the 1-minute. So I take a position at 295, and it was a good entry. It breaks through right here. And I'm watching to take profits, but there's a lot of selling volume. And right here, I'm hesitant to take any profits because I'm thinking that this has a very high likelihood of retesting high of day. Their top leading gainer by a mile. There's not really anything else moving at this point. And, I thought maybe that it might just do a minor pullback before it moves to retest the highs. But I don't take profits quick enough and it ends up rejecting. And that was kind of the final nail in the coffin for me for the day. A lot of false breakouts, minus $7, winning trade turned into a losing trade. And I think that part of the reason why I didn't sell right away was because I was a little bit emotionally compromised from having those two losing trades earlier and then having the break of the pivot, which is what I intended earlier, which I missed out on. So I think there was a little bit of emotional involvement with the fact that I didn't take profits up at 330 or just exit the position completely as it rejected with high volume selling on the 10-second. So 3 strikes, you're out. I just shut it down. I don't even, stick around for much longer for market open. I had to get to work anyways. It is what it is. Minus $39 loss. Biggest loss for the week. This is Thursday, August 13th. Leading gainer was a penny stock with a 10 million share float. When we sat down in the morning, we were looking at FGI for the break of the pivot of 613. But it was before 7 a.m., so my rule says that I cannot trade before 7 a.m. So this breaks the pivot and goes without me. And I was looking at this pullback around, I think this was the previous high of day level. Yeah, this was the pre-market high of day was 613, and the after hours high was 696. So this is the after hours high of 696. I was looking at this pullback, but I saw higher volume selling on the 10-second, and I mentioned this earlier once again, that I've been treating volume bars as my confirmation for entry for higher volume buying, later volume selling. But one thing I do need to keep in mind is if we have higher volume selling and it continues to break through anyways, holds a level, then that also could be a trigger for short selling. Right here we have extremely high volume selling, right, on that pullback. But it holds this previous bottom, the previous low of the pullback. You can see it very clearly on the 1-minute chart around 660, 661. It held that level almost exactly, even though it had a really high volume selling candle. It comes up and it breaks 707. And that would be the point that I should be a buyer, considering we had really high volume selling, but buyers didn't capitulate. We had a 1-minute micro pullback, and we make a nice fat move all the way up to 830. 838. But I didn't take a trade on it because of the high volume selling candles. We pull back. At this point, I think that we're extended, and it does a false breakout, so I don't take a trade. It curls back up, and since we've done so many false breakouts, I'm just wary of it. Right up here, I do take a trade as it curls. So it comes up, pulls back to this level, and I'm thinking that this entry right here is a good entry for the hold of that low of the pullback of maybe like 815. It pops up and I take some profit at 872, but as it breaks down 850, I just get out with the rest because it felt like a double top. It does curl back up again, but because there's so many topping tails on this chart that I just have difficulty trusting it at this point. But as it continues to hold up here, like from this position right here, we finally break high of day. We do a 1-minute pullback with a kind of a little bit of a longer body doji candle, and we're holding the 9 EMA very well. We have a flat top around 920. MACD's positive. And we have room on the daily up to above $10, I believe. So I was thinking that if we broke 920, that we had a good chance that short sellers would end up capitulating. And as we break up to 920, I take a position around here. And I took a position and it immediately rejected. And I get stopped out of the trade, which frustrated me a little bit because that looked like a very high probability setup. But one thing that I didn't look at was that there was some ascending resistance on the 5-minute. And I go back here, and I believe I draw some ascending resistance. Yeah. So you can see if you draw from the candle back here up through, then I bought right into ascending resistance, which was an oversight on my part. So kind of a deserved losing trade, but not to say that it couldn't just break through ascending resistance and go parabolic, but it was definitely a riskier trade. Now the next stock that popped up was YXT, and I think I missed an opportunity on this one as well. A Chinese stock had some news, financial results. I don't typically like financial results, and we're right below the 200 moving average, which is at 660. But it breaks through the 200 moving average, and it does a pullback around 650. And I think I should have bought this micro pullback at 650, and it goes all the way up to 720 or so, 750. That was a good micro pullback that I missed, unfortunately, and it doesn't end up holding up and ends up projecting. This is why I typically don't like financial results. They don't usually hold up, but I think the micro pullback was still a valid setup to buy. Could have given me a little bit of a cushion on the day, brought me back from -9 back up to positive on the day. FGI comes back up, but I'm really wary of this stock now, so I don't take a position as it rolls back up to high of day. But the stock that really caught people off guard in this day was XHG, similar to SCKT, where in a single 10-second candle, let's see, I think I was watching it as it popped up. XHG was moving somewhat quickly for a penny stock, up 81%. And right there, it squeezes all the way to $18 in a single 10-second candle and comes all the way back down to $2 in an instant. And I said to myself, this is exactly why I don't short sell. Because as a short seller there, if I bought, like, how many shares could I buy with my account? I could buy over 1,000 shares of this penny stock if I wanted to. And if you get margin called as it pops up, you have no choice but to get filled wherever the broker ends up selling your shares. If you get filled up at 18 or $10, $10 a share on 1,000 shares means that you're down $10,000 in an instant. Right? That'd be a big chunk of my savings gone in an instant. But that was really fantastic. There were a couple of people in chat who actually caught that move and ended up getting a nice big windfall. And similar to SCKT, this ends up holding the 9 EMA on the 10-second very closely, and it curls back up. Once again, I think the reason for this is because short sellers are covering their positions off of the 9 EMA. And we also have long bias traders jumping in because this is now up 300%. The news is good. They tend to acquire First Cycle Inc. But I still didn't know how to treat the stock at this time, so I was waiting for a pullback to give me an entry. And right here, I'm looking at a bull flag pattern on the 1 minute. But I also think that we're really extended up here, right? I think that if you look at the 5 minute chart, the nine, if you look at the 5 minute chart, the 9 EMA is all the way down at $2, which is really far away in terms of percentages. It's up over 200% from the 9 EMA, which is pretty extended. So I am wary about this bull flag, and it ends up doing a little bit of a false breakout. See, it closes. I don't take a position to anticipate the break because I'm wary that it's going to be a false breakout. And it does do a false breakout, so I was correct about that. However, we continue holding $5. And I'm wondering if we end up breaking 550, which is that pivot level now of where it rejected on that 10-second candle. If it comes back up and breaks that pivot after holding $5, then we can have some short seller capitulation. This bull flag pattern is still valid if this candle turns green. So I'm watching it. And right there, we have some green on the tape. It's coming back up, and I get ready to punch an order. I punch it at 570. It's a little bit high, 20 cents off of 550, but the trade works immediately, and it squeezes all the way up to 740. I take some profit off. I intended to take profit up near 7, but I got a little bit scammed out of my order. I've been selling on the bid, but I should probably swap back to selling on the ask into strength soon for stocks like this where the spreads are really big. Because in that instant that I took my first profit, right? Like, let's watch. Pops up to 680, and I'm thinking, okay, we're near $7. I'm going to take some off. Right, it pulls back. It's 630 on the bid there for an instant, and I end up getting out at 630 instead of up near 7. So I lost like between 40 and 70 cents a share probably just on the fact that I wasn't scaling out into strength. It's a little bit unfortunate. I will have to adjust my focus soon to scaling in and out of trades, the execution portion, and selling back on the ask into strength, and instead of using just sell on the bid as a universal hotkey for scaling out and whatnot. But I wait to see if this is going to continue going parabolic. And as we pull back a little bit too much with higher volume selling, and I see a big seller pop up there on the ask, that's my exit indicator to get out. Really nice trade, $94 trade. Our biggest green day of the week, which kind of saved our butts for Monday and Tuesday. But after this point, the stock just goes sideways, and I don't take any more trades on it. Day is pretty much over, and DFSC was one that I missed. This was another stock that popped up with fiscal results that was a bit cheaper. So I kind of thought the day was over, and I really wasn't paying enough attention to it. But DFSC, this probably was a really nice pullback. ABCD pattern on the 10-second chart holding the 9 EMA right near or above high of day for a 1-minute micro pullback. That would have been the icing on the cake for the day if I had taken that position, and I could have afforded to take more share size because I had a big cushion on the day. Probably could have taken 200 shares on this, or maybe even 400 shares if I wanted to, for a really nice pullback looking like that. And ends up going up to just over 240. So could have squeezed some extra profit out of the day there. So this is Friday, August 14th. We only had one trade on this day. I was very wary about all of the choppy price action that we've had in the past week. So 7 a.m. we get a pop on Wheato. We have a pullback. It's 7 seconds to to 7 a.m., the kind of unofficial market open where a lot of brokers allow you to start trading. And Wito is our top leading gainer. And right here, I'm noticing that we're holding the 9 EMA very well. We have a 1 minute pullback, holding $10 at level of psychological support. I'm thinking that we're going to get a pop up, probably back up to high of day of 11 here. So I take a position, stop is 10, and it pops all the way up to 11, and I get some lag on my broker or something. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I noticed as I watched this back that my order types are kind of cycling there for some reason. Maybe because I had clicked on it earlier. So I was clicked into the window. It says limit order right there, but when I try to sell on the bid, it doesn't go through. It says my hotkey went through. Sell bid full, Shift D was applied, but it's not selling, so I'm kind of worried that I'm having some technical issues. And then my order type gets flipped to stop market there for some reason, and then stop limit. And eventually I get out at 11, but I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But the trade ended up working about $17 cushion to start the day, which is great. I did end up missing a trade on this day. I wasn't interested in LBGJ, Chinese stock with no news. Kind of wary as it's pulling back. CGTL, kind of the same thing. Hong Kong company with no news. Bunch of topping tails. You know, I really didn't want to go too crazy with the choppy price action on Friday. It did end up having an ABCD pattern that sort of worked, but it ends up rejecting. We don't take any trades. CGTL curls up, but at this point I was away from my keyboard at around 7:30 because I was having stomach issues because I had eaten spicy chicken fingers the previous day, and I think I was making my stomach upset. So we went AFK around here. I couldn't stick around to trade this because I knew that I was going to trade poorly if I was having stomach issues, and I just needed to go to the washroom. So I was AFK. This ends up rejecting off of high day anyways. Unfortunately, the stock that I did miss was Wito as it popped through the pivot at around 1022. It did a nice pullback candle. Let's see if I go back and I look at it here. On the 5 minute, it's a obvious W pattern with that tweezer top in the middle at around 1022. The stock pops up. It does a nice micro pullback on the 10-second, and as this candle forms, it breaks, makes a new high, and then squeezes all the way back up to high of day at 1174. We were AFK while that happened, unfortunately. Probably was the cleanest move of the day, but I ended up missing it. It is what it is. And I don't take any other trades on it because we have ascending resistance up here, and there's been a lot of false breakouts recently. I just decide not to mess with it. STKH also popped up. I really underestimated this though. I pulled it up late as well because it was moving on the scanners. But STKH had been moving constantly for the past month or so that I just considered it noise at this point. Like if you look, it's been moving many, many days in a row. You know, curling up, dropping down, curling back up, dropping down, curling up, dropping down. The relative volume on it is extremely low at the time that I pulled it up. It does a couple of nice micro pullbacks and it's moving quickly, but I didn't pull it up right up until this point because I thought it was just noise until I realized on my leading gainers chart that I was up 100%. Right here, this probably would have been an okay micro pullback entry, but I noticed the relative volume on it, and I noticed that we're right up at the highs as well. So I was wondering, like, is this really going to keep moving? but I underestimated it, and my prejudices on the stock kind of led me to not taking a position as it squeezes all the way up to 8, unfortunately. And the move was done at this point. So that was the last opportunity for Friday. There wasn't really anything at the open that I was interested in. It was all chopping around, halting down. And that is how we ended the week. Ended up $73.13, giving us a monthly total gain of $170.84. And between the past 3 weeks, so the last week of July and then the 2 weeks into August, we've actually been doing really well. We've had above a 50% accuracy, just barely, almost a 2-to-1 profit to loss ratio. Our total gain and loss in the past 3 weeks is $220. Doing a little bit worse on $2 stocks, and I noticed that we've been doing a little bit worse after 9 a.m. for whatever reason. But one thing I do have to consider now is whether to begin sizing up a little bit. I've been getting a lot of encouragement that maybe it's time. If we look at my total cumulative drawdown at this point and our cumulative P&L, we're back on uptrend after a long drawdown and going sideways for a couple of months. Now we're back on uptrend. The only thing I'm worried about is this uptrend a period of the market where we've just been getting clean moves? And it's not, maybe it's not anything that I've particularly done to change. Maybe it's just a period in the market where things are just a little bit easier. I'm not sure. But it is promising to see my P&L moving back on uptrend. And I do have to consider whether or not to start trading, maybe not with quarter size anymore, maybe with half size. And if we continue having good green weeks, then I can continue to scale up as I gain more confidence. The other thing to consider is whether sizing up is going to make my hesitation worse. And that's something that I will have to closely monitor if I do size up on Monday. But I think we're going to consider it. We're going to take the weekend to think about it and come back on Monday and closely monitor ourselves if we do size up to see if we can continue our performance. Up now $85 total gain or loss, getting closer to break even on commissions, which is fantastic. But we'll just have to see what the weekend brings. But I think that's going to be it for me. One thing I will note is that doing these recaps on a weekly basis, where I'm talking for an hour at a time, is really hard on my voice because I don't normally talk that much at a time. So I might start trying to do daily recaps instead, where the day is fresh in my mind, and then the weekly recaps will be reserved for showing my P&L and talking about some of the challenges that I encountered during the week and maybe what I expect for next week. I can try to do the daily recaps. It's a little bit difficult with my schedule, but I can probably get them done at night after work. But we'll see what happens. But I think that's going to be it for me. Once again, thanks to everyone that's been stopping by the live stream and supporting me. I'll be back at it on Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, live streaming as per usual. But until then, take care, stay green, and I'll see you next time.